Terrence here with Root Healthy Plants. And today's video, I wanted to take you along on just a basic day where I do garden chores. I put so much time and so much effort and so many hours into my garden, and the majority of it isn't recorded. I just wanted to take you along and just so you can see some of the things that I do on a regular day, some of the things that I'm trying to tweak, just the mindset behind what I'm doing and not doing. Let me know in the comments if you think I should do more of these gardening chores or daily gardening videos, just surveying what I'm harvesting daily, because I don't record most of the things that I harvest. I don't record most of the things that I do, just some of the stuff. So let me know. While I wait for you to get back to me, I'm going to do a few of my regular garden chores, and today is a compost day for me. And if you've watched my content on previous videos, you've seen that I have volunteers growing in my compost bins, and today is no different. We have at least 5 squash plants growing in my compost bin. We have a plethora of tomatoes growing in here. So before I add in my compost that is long overdue, I'm going to want to take out a nice amount of these volunteers because they are of mature quality and they will provide food and sustenance for me and my family in the future. So you can watch me as I transplant these, which I hate killing plants that are going to provide food and sustenance. So I'm going to give you a look into my compost bins, and then I'm going to transplant them into my backyard food forest, and then I'm going to add in the fresh compost. Let's get started. Let me show you what's going on. Okay, so as for what you can see right here in this compost bin, this is akin to one of the past videos that I've done just recently, where I come and look at my compost bin and I see squash growing out of it. And this is another case. These are winter squash that are growing out of my compost bin, and they grow out of my compost bin because I don't mind adding seed to my compost bin. I took a compost class maybe 2 years ago now at Rutgers University in New Jersey, and one of the things that was like a faux pas for them, a compost no-no, was adding seeds to your compost. And this is one of the things that I was in stark contrast to the facilitator of that class, because I said, why not add seeds to your compost if they're food? Why care if you're getting pop-up volunteers? And she had all the things to say against it, and I just felt like I'm the one who actually gardens. I do this on a daily. I do this every year, and I think I do a bit more than you do. And this is not about classroom work. This is about real-world application, and I've gotten the proof. As per last year. If you watch my videos, I've gotten more pounds in volunteers, especially volunteer squash, more pounds in food and volunteer vegetables than I did in everything else that was intentionally planted. And if you guys think that maybe I should be teaching a compost class or a class on anything that you would like to learn, let me know, and we can just do these things online on this channel and doing these things live. I would like to start adding some more live videos, maybe on Saturdays or Sundays. We can do lives and just make this educational. And especially for the beginner, I was that person, and I wish I had somebody mentoring me along the way, especially when I first started growing in pots, growing on my porch. What I want to do, so we have one squash plant here, we have one right here, and we have 2 under here and 1 right there. So we have actually 5 squash plants in here, and I don't like to transplant my squash unless they have a nice amount of true leaves. If they don't have any true leaves, I don't like to transplant them. If I can't positively identify them as for what they are, squash or cucumber, or what type of squash, especially on top of that, these right here being more mature plants, they're a little less likely to have transplant shock if you do it the right way. So I'm going to do these one by one, and then I'm going to add a bunch of compost in this bin right here. I'll take this one first because it's separated from the batch, separated from the rest of them, a little bit more secluded. And I just want to get a nice dig, nice hefty dig under where I know it's definitely not rooted, and kind of sift my way through. And we have a nice healthy batch of compost under there, and we definitely have that squash taken out of there. And I want to do more digging than is necessary. I want to make sure we get extra compost. And look at that, we have healthy compost. We have worms here, if you can see on camera. That's a healthy compost. We got worms in there. This is not active compost, but a healthy compost that's not active should absolutely have worms in it. All right, so we got one out of there, and I want to make sure I grab enough compost, because when I transplant this, I don't just want to put this into a very unhealthy, unrich, unnutrient-rich medium. I want to make sure I can backfill it a nice amount and put under the roots where I'm going to put it at a nice amount of compost. So I'll just add that in there. Don't want to push it in too much. I don't want to break the plant, but I definitely want to have enough compost for when I transplant this. It's not feeling a real shock. It'll slowly start to get itself acclimated to the new soil after it's reached outside of the compost, but it'll be settled in with the new soil, the new growing medium in the meantime. So we'll put that one to the side right there, and we're on to the next one. And the squash that I've transplanted on previous videos, they are alive and well. None of them have actually died, none of them. So we're on to this one right here, and like I said, ooh, this one's sticking out a little bit. I pulled this one directly right out. This one wasn't in much compost at all, but we're going to add compost at the bottom. We don't want this hitting the sun. We don't want this catching too much air, and we want to get that covered. We definitely don't want roots exposed, especially something that is highly susceptible to transplant shock like squash. So get that covered just like that. A nice amount more of compost to just backfill that root system right there, and I think we're good to go. Okay, so we got 2 done. All right, we're working on the next 3 here, so we want to be careful. This one right here, the bigger one, the mama plant right here, this one is rooted next more in the center, and like I said, I want to go under further than we need to and outside further than we need to. So we want to be as careful as possible. This is like surgery right here almost. We don't want to break any roots. Okay, we got that root system out, and I'm going to put it in this pot here. So I'll lay this down to the side for a few seconds. Hurry up, be fast. We are under time pressure because we don't want these roots feeling like they've been abandoned. We don't want them feeling neglected. We don't want them feeling like they've been displaced, like they're sleeping, lying dormant. You know, you've just been moved from one hand to the next, but you're still under good care. You're okay. So we got the 3rd squash right here, good to go. Put that to the side right there. Lay it down. Whew, almost there. We got 2 more, and they both have their true leaves on there. They're both not as big as that last one, but they both have true leaves on it, so it's all good. So I'm going to take another pot here. These are 1 gallon pots. You can use whatever pots you have available. I got a gazillion of these 1 gallon pots. All right, make a bed for it. Now get under it. Get under it. Be careful with it. Gentle, gentle. And that came out just like that. And we're going to backfill it immediately. You definitely don't want exposed roots. Not to the sun, not to the air, not for long. Do as best you can. And if you have a water hose or something readily available, you can water those in that pot right there, right then and there, until you're ready to transplant. It can't hurt to water it in. Last one. We want to be quick about it. Don't play games. Be quick about it. All right, so I got some compost here. A slight bottom bed. And what do we got? We got the roots. They're in there somewhere. I'm going to get those dry leaves up out of there. and backfill that with some moist, healthy, nutrient-rich compost, just like that. That's how I do it. You do it how you do it, I do it how I do it. This is how I do it, and I'm getting lots of success. I'm getting all success. All right. So we got 5 volunteers successfully out of the compost, and it's time to transplant it. All right, let's get it. We're coming into my backyard food forest where we have so many things planted, so much going on. I have persimmon trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 persimmon trees, 1 sickle pear. I have a few trees over there, so I definitely got to start carving out space in the backyard where there's plenty. It's just I got to add new enclosures, and that's a project. It's just a matter of finding the time. We're getting ready to find a new home for these squash. Let's do it. Let's see, where do these, ooh, you see those squash? This is what these squash are going to start to look like. But what looks like a good spot for these squash? Oh, I see one right there, right in the middle where there's like a little gap right there. Let's add this over here. And I don't even have a hand shovel. And we got a little baby winter squash right here, and one right here, but there's not one right here. We got a little summer squash right here, but we're gonna add another winter squash right here. This bed right here, not this previous year, but the year before, I broad forked it really good. But this is at the end of the bed where I didn't broad fork much. So the soil under here, the red clay soil, might be a bit more dense and a little bit more difficult to grow in and plant in because it's not as loose and airy. But let's see. It's definitely a lot healthier since I've been adding the arborist mulch on top. You know, the soil is not degrading like it was, and worms and microorganisms are likely to thrive in this environment more than it was before I started doing anything to it. It was just grass back here. All right, I don't want to dig too hard, dig too much, because I want to bust my gloves open, and I need my gloves on today. Just surround that with all that compost and let it slowly start to acclimate itself to the native soil here. You don't want to transplant shock it. So taking something like squash and taking it completely out of soil that is in a nutrient-rich soil, or just whatever type of soil that is used to, and putting into something that's completely different. It's like taking you're used to living in your house, you know, having air conditioning, heat, and then throwing you out there in the wilderness in Antarctica, and you're not used to dealing with cold environments, or throwing you in the Sahara Desert, and you're not used to dealing with those super dry, moisture-stricken environments. So, you know, just think of it like that. If you couldn't survive somebody just throwing you in the desert, or you couldn't survive somebody just throwing you in extreme cold environment, don't do that to your plants. You don't want to treat your plants that way. So right here, you know, it's dead heat of the day, so the leaves are a little bit limp. So they're going to look like that, but they're going to perk up at night. So the important thing right now, after I just put that in there, is to cover up the soil. You definitely want to have a little bit of a mulch so you don't have soil degradation. And then water that in nicely. Water it in. That is the important parts of transplanting. Everything that I just mapped out right there. And I'm going to repeat the steps for each of the squash. I don't want to hold you for doing that for each and every one, but that is the gist of it. So water it in, and it's good to go for everything that I just explained. And like I said, just surveying what's down here. I got sunflower here, a few sunflowers here. I got a winter squash right here. I have watermelon right here, watermelon right here. And I don't want to impede any of the food. So we definitely have weeds and stuff that needs to come out. But I definitely want to have food where more food should be. So we have a winter squash right here that I'm kind of kneeling on. But it's alive. It's the winter squash. This should start to take off in a while. And then we have another winter squash right here. But right here in this vicinity, there's nothing. So I kind of want to dig in here, see see what the landscape is looking like. And if it looks fertile, I definitely want to put in another winter squash. And it does look fertile, does look healthy. There's a lot of soil protection down here. So let's do it. All right. Peel some of that stuff back. And let's be gentle. But let's be gentle, but overturn this pot and kind of drop that in there just like that. That's the only thing we want exposed are the leaves, so that the sun can get to it. It can get photosynthesis, but we want everything else to be covered. And I'm getting ready to add in the next layer of drip irrigation in this one row. This is the only row that doesn't have drip irrigation, but I bought drip irrigation this morning for this one row, and we're going to do that today also. Okay, so we have this next squash in the ground, good to go, and on to the next one. All right, let's take a look down the line. Where's the next one at? Oh, we got one ready to go right there. Let's do it. What do we have over here that I think that this is a good place to be? We have a ton of arborist mulch, and this is good. This is good to grow in, especially for certain things. And I have a sunflower right here. We got squash growing over here, summer squash over there. That one over there is a winter squash, but we have a ton of very fertile arborist mulch that will grow a lot of stuff. I don't know what this is. This is a tree growing in. I will wait a while to see what type of tree this is growing in, because I'm with some of the volunteer trees, some of the ones I'm not. But when I see weeds that I don't want, that I know what they are, I pull them. But there's a lot of real estate here that can have a lot of stuff put in here. So the more volunteers I get, I'm going to continue to add in this one bed. I got a ton of tomatoes coming out of my other compost bin, and I'm going to add them to this bed also. But right here, right now, we're going to add this squash plant right here. So this looks like a really good spot to add it in. You can see how dark the mulch is. That's how you know how wet it is, and that's how you know the mulch retains so much moisture. Now I definitely want to keep in that compost, but this is a super good medium to grow in because it retains so much moisture. This has broken down from a lot of pine needles, leaves, and so on and so forth. So this growing medium is really mimicking the forest, and this is a lot of what the Back to Eden garden method actually is. So arborist mulch is really a game changer for me as far as how I grow. So I'm a big proponent of Back to Eden gardening. We're not going far at all. We still have some corn stalks from last year. I'll just break those down in place and make a spot for this squash right here. Peel some of the leaves back. And I just want to make sure this is able to go into a good growing medium. I don't mind the leaves being here. The leaves are good. They're going to compost in place. And let's add this other squash plant right here. Nice. And just nestle that in there. So there we go. We got one, we got two squash, and I'm confident that these squash will do fine. All right. So the next one, right next to my thornless blackberry bush that I just added in this year, and next to my grapes, which you might be able to see are growing up my fence line, and the raspberries right next to me, there's a nice little gap here. So I want to add another squash in right about here. So let's check under here, see how the growing medium is doing. And we have a lot going on. This looks super fertile. And this stuff just moves right out the way. This is part of what was left over from my Three Sisters bed from last year. A lot of arborist mulch. And this stuff is super fertile to grow in. Amazing stuff right here. And we're just going to just dump that squash right there, right in place. Cover that back up. Only thing we want exposed are the leaves. That's good to go. And I'm going to water those in. Let's get back to composting the compost bin that we just took these from. Back to it. Now, I've talked about this on prior videos, but my method to how I do my compost is I have food safe buckets here, which says food grade. And this is the bigger buckets that I like to store my compost in. So in the wintertime, when it's super cold and I don't want to come out every day or even every week to put my compost in my compost bin, I put food into these coffee containers right here in my house, and when these two get full, I come outside and dump them into these bigger buckets. When the bigger buckets get full, then I come outside and dump them into my compost bins right here. Now I have at least 4 compost bins like these right here, these eco bins, and I'm probably going to have to get more as I start to expand. But this is my method. In my house, I got 2. Outside, I have at least 4. Right now, I have at least maybe 3 that are full, and we're going to dump those in my compost bin today. I've been torn between dumping my compost and waiting to harvest what volunteers I see growing from my compost bin. So now that I just took all of the volunteers that are growing out of one compost bin, I now feel good enough to dump the new compost into the pre-existing compost. Now I still have plenty of other compost, which is good, and I always want to have ready compost for growing my food and vegetables. Compost changed my life as far as growing. Let's get to it. We're going in this middle bin right here. So we got the 1 coffee container, don't contain much, a few cherries and such, maybe some watermelon, got my other coffee container, some avocado pits, some honeydew melon, watermelon, who knows, coffee grinds, plenty of watermelon as you can see. A lot of these other buckets are going to be a lot more nastier. They've been sitting for a while and maybe a little less decipherable. And this stuff really has more of a foul odor the longer it sits. And you really don't want to make a habit of that. So everything that I just added in is full of nitrogen. Now what you want to add in to neutralize that odor are a lot of carbon. So you want to add in 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. Now leaves are the easiest way to add in carbon, but a good form of carbon if you're at a lack of leaves is cardboard. As long as the cardboard is not plastic coated, it's not shiny, it's not full of a bunch of ink, feel free to add in a bunch of cardboard, and the more broken up the better. If you can cut it up, break it up, rip it up, do that, and you'll have a bunch of carbon right there. Incoming, another bucket. Oh, tomatoes, corn, oranges, avocados, lettuce, celery, you name it. So I really didn't want y'all to miss the fact that outside of my backyard enclosure, which I raked a lot of leaves out of, I had sitting right here, and it's been sitting here the whole time. And this is an opportune moment for me to come and pick up and use a lot of this carbon that's just sitting here. Now I didn't bag this up. Sometimes I bag it up, and it definitely is killing a plot of grass right here, but I don't care about grass. I'm not a big proponent of grass. It doesn't do anything for me. It only costs me money and time. Now we definitely added in a nice amount of nitrogen, and we definitely want to, especially with something like leaves that is really like, it's not dense at all, it's really light, we definitely want to add in a lot of that. And if I'm at a lack of leaves to add, I can always resort to my arborist mulch and add that in to my compost bin. Now the arborist mulch is not my go-to because the wood chips take longer to break down. Leaves are my go-to. If I can get fresh leaves that don't have seeds of any weeds or anything in it, that's what I'm going to resort to first. Leaves and grass make easy compost. If I'm not doing like a leaf grass compost, which is the quickest, I can make like a 30-day compost, then I'll do like my kitchen scraps, add a bunch of leaves in, and when I'm at a lack or loss of leaves, then I will add in my arborist mulch or wood chips and things that are more dense and things that are like more of like a 30-to-1 breakdown, but take a lot longer to break down. The good Lord put all of these leaves and this grass and everything here so that we can use what we have available to live and make this work. There's so much at our disposal that we can use to survive, thrive, and prolong life and society and growth and community. So it's just about getting in tune with nature, not getting more in tune with devices and separation. So this is what I'm promoting. This is what my channel is about. You know, creating community. I want to hear what y'all are doing. You know, I'm excited to see what other people have going on that are promoting not just sustainability, but promoting growth and regenerative gardening. I think we have enough leaves for the moment. Let's add this into our compost. Now it's a little bit tedious right here because I have this in bins. I can't just dump it like it's on the ground, but it's all good. And being that I'm adding in this carbon in the form of leaves right here like this, it stands to mention if you could run these leaves over with your lawnmower, some type of mulcher, it will break down in your compost a lot faster also. So the more you can break it down, the better. But if you don't have a means to break this down, you can just add your leaves in like this. Just understand that leaves, if left to their own, they can create like a layer that plants and stuff can't permeate through. They will do that. So it's important for you to constantly turn your compost if you're adding in whole leaves. And if you're not adding in whole leaves, just mulch your compost really good. And if you add it into the lawnmower or some type of mulcher, you're going to have a lot more of a chance of success. Just to, you know, it's important to add. I know it because I've done it both ways. Now this is my long-term compost right here. This is not my short-term compost bins. If it was my short-term compost bin, I would definitely be mulching it more before I added it in here. And being that this is a long-term compost bin, I'm going to be doing a lot of turning of this compost like I'm about to do right now. So I don't do too much adding before turning. Let's aim at turning this compost right now. Nobody wants to smell or old kitchen scraps. A good mixture is going to help neutralize that, especially when you water it in. The next day, you can't smell any of that. If you do it correctly, your compost will never smell. And if your compost does smell, you're not doing something right. So just I'm already losing the smell. So just a general rule of 3-to-1, 3 parts carbon, 1 part nitrogen. And the denser the carbon, the less carbon you actually need. So when you get into actually adding in to twigs, wood chips, and stuff like that, dense cardboard, roots, you know, the less you need to add in. You don't just want nitrogen sitting with nitrogen because that stuff will smell super foul. Now it's time to add in even more carbon. Even though this is enough carbon to maybe water it in, maybe, I still smell a little bit, but I'm going to add more carbon in just to be sure, and then water it in, and this will have zero smell. All right, so we've been doing a good job of mixing in this compost here because this stuff was smelling super foul. The longer you let it sit, the more foul it's going to smell. So it's good to get your compost out, but all that carbon, all those leaves, this is definitely going to neutralize all that nitrogen smell and break that stuff down really good. So I'm happy with how this compost came out. My mixture right here, this is definitely going to keep the odor down. The next thing to do on my list of garden chores is we're going to add in more drip irrigation so that my third bed is hydrated and I don't have to worry about watering it by hand each day. Let's get it. So to any of y'all that may have wondered, my drip irrigation of choice now is Element Soaker Pro system. Now, they're not paying me. I don't have any endorsements. This is not a plug. This is not a promotion. This is just what I choose to use because it's very adaptable and I can add different fittings. I can cut the drip irrigation where I want it and add different fittings anywhere, anytime. And that's how I like it. So this is what a 100-foot box of drip irrigation looks like. It's about 50 bucks. And I've bought about 4 of these now. And it comes with different fittings and stuff. So this is how I wrap my trees. If I'm putting a ring around a new tree, you can easily add a ring around a tree with this type of irrigation and fittings. We're going to open up another new box of this irrigation right here. All right, so let's open this up here. And these fittings come in handy, but right now I really don't need many of these fittings because I'm just running this up my bed here, running this down my other bed here, and running it up the same bed. So I like to run at least 2 lines up every 45-foot by 6-foot bed of drip irrigation. This tends to have several different types of fittings, and the fittings tend to look like this. You have this 3-way fitting, which this one just has an end cap on it, but it's really this type of end fitting right here. And then you have end pieces like this, and some of them have an open end and some of them come with a cap like that. So it's just a matter of switching out the cap. And then you have plugs right here, and these plugs can go into the ends that you don't want open. So if you're trying to add this hose onto another hose, you can just plop out that old hose, take off the end cap, put it in this little piece right here. And if you don't want it going separate ways, you just want it connecting to another hose, you just put this piece right here, this cap right here, block that in right there, in there just like that, and then run that hose. Just continue to run that hose on where you want it to go. So that's just how this setup works, and this is a really easy setup. I really like this setup, and it's very adaptable to my backyard food forest. So I'm able to run drip irrigation through all 3 beds. So before I can finish running this drip irrigation up my 2nd bed and then onto my 3rd bed, I definitely have to encompass this new tree, which I didn't account for because this was a late addition. So I definitely have to pull back some of this drip irrigation right here, and it's already running right now. And I just got to push it through. I don't want to ruin any plants right now, but I definitely want to push it through enough to where I can pick it up and lift it over my tree here, because it definitely has to run around this new tree here. And this is an apple tree. This is a golden delicious apple tree, and I want to make sure I run this irrigation around this apple tree just like that, and then pull it back through. So I'm going to come down to the end where it was already pulled through, and just kind of tighten that up a little bit. I got a little bit of resistance down here, and that's where we're going to stop. And I'm going to slightly pull it back just a little bit, just to get a nice little loose ring around that tree right there. I just turned off my drip irrigation, so it's not running and it's not going to give me a problem. And now, how do we continue to run new drip irrigation at the end of this drip irrigation right here? So we have to take off this end right here. We have to screw that off. Now that that's screwed off, we want to make sure we don't get any debris in here. We don't want any debris running in our drip irrigation. And then we are going to take off this cap right here. So this cap is coming off. We want to pull that cap off right there just like that. And then we're going to slip on. So we're going to add this one piece right here. And this is a 3-ended piece, and we don't need this one end going up here. So that's why I capped that off right there. You can see that's going to end. There's no way that the water is going this way. We just want to continue water from this end into this end and continue that hose. So the old hose is going to go on this end, the new hose is going to go on this end, and the new hose other end is going to go on this piece right here, which is going to be capped off right here. And that's how you add an addition to this type of drip irrigation. Let's do it. Now I'm just going to wipe off any little debris on the end, because we don't want debris getting on in our drip irrigation if we don't have to. And we're going to put that drip irrigation into that 3-way splitter, and we're going to nestle it in there until it just doesn't go any further and it fits in there real snug. This type of irrigation is really adaptable to its fittings that are for this type of irrigation. And then now we're going to add in the new irrigation into this other end, but we're just nestling that in there. All right, feels like it's in there enough. And we have the one end already plugged, so now we have 2 ends of drip irrigation connected together. We can lay that down, and now I want to untangle the rest of this right here, bring that down the rest of our bed. So we're going to add it in how we want it added in. I think I want to go on the outside of this blueberry bush right here, which has a lot of ripe blueberries already on it. So I really need to harvest these, but I want to go on the outside of this blueberry bush and pull that down. And if you need to, so if you want to use tent stakes to nail it down where you want it to stay, feel free. Don't be afraid to do that, or use a rock to hold it down where you want it to stay. All right, so right now I have a rock right here. I'm going to use a rock where I want it to stay at right here, and I'm going to run it down my other end. And this is a 100-foot hose of drip irrigation. I'm going to put another rock here where I want it to stay at and start coming around, because I have a ring around this one tree right here as far as drip irrigation, but it's not around the rest of my trees. This one tree is the last tree that I put in my backyard food forest at the end of last growing season. And this year I added maybe 13 to 15 more fruit trees in this backyard enclosure. So I don't need this tree isolated anymore. I'll just put drip irrigation running down the whole line of all the trees and raspberries and everything else that's here. And I just want to run it properly. So I run it inside some, maybe outside some of the others. But there's a lot of new foliage, a lot of new everything here. And I just want to make sure everything gets covered. So running drip irrigation is not as difficult as people may think it is. It's just a matter of running the right type of drip irrigation that you may want. Are you on a financial restriction? Are you on a water restriction? You know, what does drip irrigation look like for you? This is an ideal beginner situation. So I'll run this drip irrigation on the outside of this tree, but on the inside of this volunteer wineberry, because we got a volunteer wineberry in here. Because I might cut this out, so I don't want to run on the outside of that. I want to run on the inside of this sunflower. Got plenty of sunflower squash in here. I don't want to kill anything, but I want to make sure everything is covered. All right, so I just want to twist it as we see fit. Make sure it runs flat, because this thing runs super circular because it's wrapped up for sale. And I'm going to put a halfway decent ring around this tree before I come back around. And now we need to make sure the rest of this drip irrigation runs how it needs to run. Walking through this bed, we want to make sure we don't damage anything, but this drip irrigation is super twisted, and we want to make sure we untwist everything, because all those twists are not going to be good for how it lays down on the bed. Don't step on my new squash that I just put down here, right? Don't step on that. And like I said, this is 100-foot drip irrigation. So I mapped out the size of my beds before I laid this down. That's how I know how much I actually need. You know, be smart about it. All right, we have new trees, new shrubs, and we want to give these new trees and new shrubs the best possible chance of success. And planting them and not irrigating them is not giving them the best chance of success. So if you're new to the game and you're just planting a new shrub, a new fruit tree, you want to make sure that these things are irrigated. So we're going to try to weave through this bramble patch, which is all pretty much raspberries and grapes here. The grapes aren't brambles, but the raspberries are brambles, and it's just really dense. I got through most of that, and I just want to make it down to this last apple tree here. So if I can lay everything down how it should, and it makes it around just perfect. Just perfect. And now I can put on this end cap here that I have in my pocket. We now have 3 beds irrigated. To finish it off, we have to add this one end cap, and then we can turn the irrigation back on. All right, so we're walking down past the brambles, past the squash, figs, apples, pears, plums, you name it, grapes, you know, so much, you name it, we got it. And we're going to add this one end cap on here, and we're done. It feels secure. All right, now let's run it. Let's do it. We're getting ready to turn this drip irrigation on. If it is working properly, you shouldn't hear anything. The pressure is going to run properly, and it's just going to drip as it should. And you should be able to run your fingers along any point of the drip irrigation and just get a little bit of water under your fingertips. So let's check it and see. The drip irrigation is on. Let's go to the first bed and see how we're looking. We should be able to see instant action. I just turned it on. Are we getting drips out of the drip irrigation? Let's see. I don't know. Let's see. That's only not even a whole minute after I turn the hose on, and it's starting to drip. So this is a good drip irrigation system, and it's built up enough pressure to where it's now dripping and hydrating my bed. And that's on our first bed. Let's check any drip irrigation on our second bed. Let's see how we're looking. Do we have any dripping? Do we have any drippage on our second bed? Oh, we're seeing drippage. We're seeing drippage. That's drippage on our drip irrigation on our second bed. I like that. Third bed right here. We're gonna see if are we getting any drippage on our third bed. This is all on the same line. Let's look. Look at that. We're getting plenty of drippage on our third line, irrigating this tree right here. Plenty of drippage. This is a good drip irrigation system, all run off of one single line. I like that. So we got all 3 beds run off one single drip irrigation line, and I can run several. I have a 4-way splitter on my spigot, and this is only one line coming from that spigot that's irrigating 3 beds. So I have a lot more that I can irrigate because I have a lot more property that needs to be planted on, and we got a lot more trees. I'm getting ready to clear out a lot more space back there, and we have a lot more to come. So I have another enclosure that I'm getting ready to put up. As you can see, we got this fencing right here. I got my T-post right here ready, plenty of T-posts. I got my fencing, more than 1 pack, so I got 2 packs of fencing, plenty of T-posts, and we got plenty more space that we're getting ready to take up back there. And I'm getting ready to clear up some space, and we're going to add another enclosure and so much more trees, fruit trees, ornamental trees, so much going on. Y'all stay tuned. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what y'all think about this backyard food forest. Is it looking like the front yard? I think the front yard is looking a lot more like a forest and a lot more less organized. This one is a lot more organized. We have rows, and we have tree, shrub, tree, shrub, tree, shrub, tree, shrub, tree, shrub. In between that, we have our squash, we have our peppers, we have our tomatoes, we have a lot going on, but it's just a lot more organized, and it's going to fill out because I'm getting ready to add in my beans, so it's going to look a lot more full. But this is a lot more of an organized food forest in my backyard versus my front yard, which is a lot more free form. So they're both food forests. They both have a canopy layer and the understory layer, but they just look a lot different because this backyard food forest is a lot more uniform. It's a lot more organized. It's a lot more linear. Let me know which one you like, front yard food forest or my backyard food forest, as far as a preference in your style, and give me your thoughts. Until the next one, Terrence here from Root Healthy Plants. Let me know, put in the comments. I'll see you on the next video. Peace.